Man, we're always looking for tough blokes. I've been telling people you're handy with a shooter. You're a reading man, Joe.
Squeezy.
If you quit in it for the bloke who gives us a happy ending for us, Joe. Joe?
Ted. Funny.
So,
Haven't done it yet, all right?
if you're not going to kill him, we want our money back.
And our gun. You said you'd go back to the job.
Man.
We're relying on you, Joe.
Yeah, I'll get it done for you, all right?
Look, if it helps any, apart from shitting, eating and breathing, the two things a bloke needs in this life is to fuck and drink. Now, you find out where he does those and you've got him.
Look, he's a dead man.
Bunny, back off. I got a gun.
Who's the gun, Squizzy? We just robbed a bank in Smith Street. You and me, the commercial, knocked off by two jokers named Ted and Barney.
It wasn't me.
Wasn't me neither. Some low bastard's been using our name in vain.
Why?
Well, why do you think, buffhead?
Do not move! Go! Put your hands where I can see them! Put your hands so I can see them!
How's your mate?
Alive.
Oh, crap. After the beating we gave him.
Hey, you're gone, Cassidy. You're inside for life this time.
Nah, not if Megan's got anything to do with it.
Oh, we got her too. So she'll be back in her box and you'll be in yours. I hope you kissed each other goodbye.
I'm not going back.
It's finished!
I want you to tell her it was for Michelle.
What?
You tell her it was for Michelle.
Don't you forget. Cassidy, don't move or I will fire!
Remember us? Stop worrying. The situation's already well in hand. Really?
Looking for this?
You know. That's fearsome power you're messing about there, girl.
Gotta win.
Okay, I'll take care of it.
Wait. What are we doing here?
I know what I'm doing here, but you've no business tagging along.
Well, I thought you were gonna stop the dog.
But I am, before he gets out of theory. Now turn around, and I'll be right back.
Fine, just make it fast.
No cheating now. Hang on! Come back here! You bad boy! Control, aye? He's faster than he looks.
Well, we know where he's going. Let's get to the yard.
Oh, I'm on it.
Oh, there's something I have to fix first.
You do whatever you want! I'm going after the dog.
What, he's a schoolgirl killer now, is he? On whose authority, mate? A ghost?
It's her hat, Ron.
Well, he was looking for her, Ben. So he found her hat and he didn't report it. It's not great police work, but so what?
Look.
Even if it was true, everyone involved is dead. No one wants to know.
중국어.
I beg your pardon.
No speak?
I speak a little Asian.
Google eyes.
Google eyes?
Google eyes.
Oh, Google eyes.
마음에 드세요? 마음에
Is that
드세요?
better?
이것은 놀라운.
Indeed.
얼마나?
For you?
$400.
Say it again. I'll teach you to shut your mouth off, you little shit. Tank, don't come any closer. He's a cop, you dumb son of a bitch.
We know who you are, mate. Terrorist House bug. Don't make it any worse yourself. Just let the kid go, all right?
Shit!
You let him go. We go easy on you.
Bullshit! You lot will gun me down the moment I turn my back.
You have my word.
Yeah, right. He's my insurance. I'm taking him with me.
Want to spend the rest of your life in jail? You don't want that, do you?
Stay back! I will put a bullet through your head, copper!
That was fun.
That was really fun.
I hope you appreciate the way I get strategically younger through the clip.
That was savvy. Wow.
I enjoyed seeing myself with brown hair again.
Well, you're timeless. Classic and timeless. That was a show reel of Ian Dixon, who is an actor, a film studies scholar, and a filmmaker. And we're going to watch his film, Interference, in a couple of minutes. And the film will be followed by another short film, which is a romantic comedy of 7 minutes. That's going to happen a little later. But at first, we're going to celebrate Ian Dixon's film. Ian Dixon was a 2 times award winner at the Center for Media and Celebrity Studies. We met in Los Angeles and then at our conference again in New York City. And the second film that we're going to show that is directed by the first CMCS conference chair, Louis Massey. And I would ask everybody to hold on to their questions till the end, but we're going to have some moments to share feedback, thoughts, reflections. I'm really, really excited about today. A huge thanks to all our honorable guests who are joining us to celebrate the 2 films. There's so much to learn and celebrate and share. And this is part of the Wall of Fame Film Festival. The annual festival day is on October 2nd or 3rd. It's on October 3rd. It's a Saturday. And if anybody wants to share their unique story, they can always submit. The extended deadline right now is July 31st. And really looking forward to reviewing all the submissions and showcasing some of the best works and celebrating ethical artists, ethical actors and filmmakers for humanity, for animal ethics, for environmental sustainability, and honor them as role models on our Wall of Fame. First of all, I would really like to hear from everybody. I would ask everybody to introduce themselves. Where are you tuning in from? And share some good news that we can celebrate. I'll start with Ian.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you all very much for coming along tonight. I'm keen to hear your response. And okay, so I've been introduced by Samita, so it's just left to me to say hi. And the one thing I would like to do is to acknowledge the lands of the Wurundjeri people upon whose soil this film was shot. It's most important that we acknowledge elders past and present, particularly in rural areas, but in all areas of Australia, because the land is Aboriginal land and will always remain Aboriginal land. That's all I want to say, and I hope that that is respected by the Aboriginal elders. Yeah, that's it from me.
Wants to go next? Andrea?
Sure. Hi, I'm Andrea. Thank you very much for having me join this wonderful occasion to see Ian and Lewis's and Samita's work today. I'm very excited. And I'll just say I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm a feminist artist and I have many things in the works, and I know I'm in good company because I'm already inspired. Thanks very much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
George?
My name is George Strudis. I'm a professor of philosophy and literature, Japanese literature, with City University of New York. I'm a filmmaker also, musician, and other multimedia artist, I suppose you could say. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here, really excited to see so many wonderful films this at this moment. Morning here in New York. Yeah. Afternoon wherever else you all are.
Evening.
Evening.
Thank you, George. Ken?
Hi, Ken Holmes. I'm an actor in New York, morning here. And I'm also a filmmaker. I'm currently working on a feature film called I Love You, Maria, and also my web series, Zoom Shorts. But overall, I'm just really honored to have been asked to be here, and I'm looking forward to the films.
Are you aware of a certain 1970s star whose name was Ken Holmes?
A 1970s star.
Yeah.
What is his filmography?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you, Ken, but he was a porn star.
That's who I thought you were talking about. I just didn't want to say it first.
That's who I'm talking about.
Yes, I'm aware of him.
You're not the same guy, are you?
That's I won't. No comment. That's a secret.
Well, was it you, Ken, saying just now that you are on Bradley Cooper's next film?
Yes. I can't talk about that too much, but yes, I am.
Okay. In what capacity?
In front of the camera.
Oh, you're acting in it with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. You know, I was once cast opposite Bradley Cooper myself, and then the filmmaker Alex Proyas, he lost the contract. So all of us Australians that were cast just lost our jobs like that. You know, it happens.
Oh no.
No, that's what happens when you want to be an actor in the Antipodes.
Well, very excited, Ken. I know there's so much work coming from you and can't wait to celebrate that as well. Thank you so much for sharing. So without further ado, we're going to start the film, Interference. It's around 18 minutes. It's a drama. I hope everybody got to read a little bit about the summary. Is there anything you would like to say in advance, Ian?
No, I would really like to talk about it afterwards, and I hope that you have a virgin experience of the film.
Okay, perfect. So let's watch the film, get cozy, grab some tea, some coffee, and we'll be back in 18 minutes.
Hey, Jordan, what was that? What you doing?
Hey, which way's the road again? I can't see.
Careful, mate. Some sick bastards in here. Hate to have to lock them up.
John?
Business trip, Maggie.
When are you coming back home? I picked this up for you. Have a read, Johnny. I'll call through later tonight, see where you're at.
Staying long?
You know.
Odd month for a holiday.
Who's looking after you? Hey, I was just asking if she was... No. There's foxes out
Look
there.
me in the face.
There's
John.
foxes.
Look at me. Look at me. John, tell me.
Keep your eyes on the truck shed.
Stop obsessing about those fucking chickens. Don't step out that door, John!
I'll have to.
Fucking hell, mate.
There!
You'll get what's coming to you, pedophile. Child.
Door.
Hang on,
Fucking door.
You gotta find out. No. You can't seriously.
Knees, pedophile. On your knees, pedophile. On your fucking knees. Just take it, okay? You shut that mouth.
Did you enjoy it? Watching like that?
Go back home, missus.
What have you done? No!
Did you feed the chooks?
John!
Did you feed the chooks?
Oh my God.
Oh, God. Oh, sweetie. Okay. Did it happen to you, John?
we have a lot of likes and comments on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And if the audience can share some more comments in the chat box, we would love to hear. My question to the audience right now, what are your first impressions? And if you have any questions for our director, Ian Dixon, please share.
Right. Fantastic job, Ian. That was really beautifully shot. The story was so nice and succinct and well relayed to us. I've got a million questions actually about so many different facets of everything. But I guess the first impression might be just the first impression. So much of what Sumita started this morning discussing was that the Wall of Fame Film Festival, in Sumita's own words, loves to explore questions of ethics and things like that. And I think that's exactly what I got out of so much of this, is not just ethics of every single character, it seems like, had that ethical question to ask, a different, perhaps, ethical question. How shall we deal with such people, right? How do we address such problems in our society? What are the ethical ramifications of different structures within society that, I don't want to say allow this to happen, but address these complicated problems and these complicated questions? And then, of course, like I said, especially the fact that you, Ian, started the discussion talking about the setting where you filmed the project, where you filmed the movie, and how so much of that now, I think Andrea, Ken, and I are in this very urban environment, aren't we? But you had specifically said that this is a very rural setting, and how important that is, and how does the rural setting of it, that you so beautifully shot, by the way, how does that rural setting affect many of the different questions, the ethical questions that we might ask, and also the answers that we might give to some ethical problems? There's so much of that that's explored in this project. So yeah, kudos, wonderful job for raising so many of these questions and telling it in such a beautiful and poignant manner. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for those observations, George. That is, that's good stuff. Thank you. Particularly in regard to the morality of the piece, because, you know, when one takes a risk, particularly at the beginning of the narrative, because the audience don't know that he's not a pedophile, you have to, I guess, in the back of your mind, have a moral sense of the filmmaker. And I certainly hope that came across, particularly in a post-new horror world when ethics seem to be very, very unfashionable. So, look, thanks very much. And I will say, in response to your comment, that the location was carefully thought through, because there are a lot of events that happen in Australia where they say there is blood in the soil, because, of course, you know, there's a rich history of Aboriginal massacres. And one of the things that does happen is that paedophilia goes unchecked in this vast country, because people can hide in the interior. Of course, this is a coastal town, and I hope that you get the sense of the huious cloth of it. It is contained. It's caught between water and rock, and you know, with a resonance to the phrase "caught between a rock and a hard place." So I'm very glad that you feel it beautifully shot. I certainly think the DOP did a stunning job. We did fight a bit because he you know, there's some DOPs, I'm sure you know, there's some DOPs who don't like a director who knows what he's talking about. They would rather think that we're all idiots. But he did do a stunning job. So thank you, George. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further question or first impression?
I have a question for Ian, actually.
Andrea, yes.
Yes, I'm
feminist,
curious.
feminist scholar, I'm very interested in your feedback.
You're very kind. Thank you. Well, it was wonderful. And I do have a question about the movement in the film, because I feel like from the very beginning we're kind of coiled with tension, and trauma is a character in the film that infuses every angle, every perspective, and there's no one who's removed from trauma in a really ominous way. And can you talk a little bit about how that becomes part of the character setting and also part of the narrative stratagem that you use?
Yes, well, absolutely. Like I'll start with the mise en scène, the choice of location. Those it's not just a beach. Australian beaches are beautiful, but this is a very jagged winter beach. So the sense that there are rocks that are hard and dangerous, because if you trip on I have tripped on those rocks when I was a kid, and I live to tell the tale, but that hurts. So I was trying to imbue trauma in the landscape. I'm so impressed that you've picked that up, Andrea. I also, there's all these questions that keep popping up underneath me that I'm trying not to read. So yes, of course, any film is built around its central character, and the central character's post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of sexual abuse in his own childhood is what creates the spine of the piece and creates all the doubt. And as you rightly point out, and as George points out, the cop is probably the least moral person. Well, the second least moral person in the film, but he does realize he's a wonderful actor, Peter. And actually, Peter has his own, as an actor, and I know he wouldn't mind me saying this, he carries trauma himself. And when he cries at the end, actually, he did a beautiful scene and the tears were just flowing down his face. But of course, he's the antagonist, so I couldn't stay with him much longer, but I do credit Peter for giving such a stunning performance there. And I don't know if you've ever been to Australia, but there's a particular phenomenon of the belligerent cop, and particularly the belligerent country cop that just goes like, well, this is my town, my rules. And this guy is sold out. Not that he knows that he's harboring a pedophile, but he just didn't, put his legal acumen into it. Wendy is a very close friend of mine, and of course her trauma is losing her husband to this other thing that happens in his life. And I will say that the basic premise of where I created this film from was in realizing, and this is an ethical issue, in realizing that a society that says we will protect children who have been damaged in this way fails to see the hypocrisy, and that there is a tacit agreement that people who have been abused grow up to be abusers. Now, we know there is plenty of cases where that is true, but society, as I understand it, certainly self-righteous Australian society tends to say that, but then judge the adults as if it's axiomatic that they are going to abuse. And research, and I've done a lot of research in this territory, research tells us that is not true. So whilst society purports to support the adult children who've grown up, actually they're punishing them in that very basic Freudian way. So to have you put your finger on the central traumatic issue, when Andrea, I'm deeply touched. Thank you. And I am seriously interested in a feminist reading of the film, should you choose to come forward with it.
Thanks very much.
One thing
thank you, Hannah, for your comment there. It is difficult, and I'm very glad, because the film doesn't exist on its own, but allows for discussions to occur. Sorry, Ken.
Oh, that's okay. One of my, first of all, phenomenal film.
All I can see is the mistakes. I mean, I will say this just before we go to your question. I have deep respect for film crews. I think what they do is phenomenal and tantamount to genius. But this was the most hopeless first AD I ever worked with. And I missed probably about 20% of my shots because he just couldn't hold order in the crew. He couldn't keep it on schedule. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that out loud, but what it meant was there was some pretty creative editing that had to occur to fill some of the holes in the plot. I hope that it's still communicable. Sorry, Ken, for saying that.
Well, no, that's interesting to hear, but no, one of the things that I find interesting, like in watching a film for the first time, not in addition to the story, is how does the filmmaker choose to tell the story? And one of the things I felt about this film is that you told it mostly visually. There was not much dialogue, but it was beautifully shot, and there was also so much subtext and I feel symbolism, symbolism, like the screaming tea kettle and the chicks and the foxes.
You
so
got
I'm
that.
just wondering with with writing the script, how much of that was like your intention, and how did you decide to tell the story in that way?
All of it was my intention. Actually, in earlier drafts, I'm so glad you pick up the. Has everyone gone? Are we still here? I seem to.
I hear you.
We're still here. I can hear you.
We're still here.
Oh, there you are.
There we are.
Playing triple with Samita. Yes, first of all, Ken, yes, it's all utterly intentional. And thank you for picking up the chicks and foxes imagery. Did you notice the little bird on his hand, the bird tattoo on his hand?
Yes.
Would you believe that is actually the tattoo on the actor?
Wow.
And we had, like there were shots in there that I had to cut out. Like there was a local fish and chips shop called the Bluebird Cafe, and it was in a circle. So I actually had him framed in the halo of that and said Bluebird. It was a bit too screamingly obvious at the end of the day, and I thought we need to make that a little more subtle. But certainly the birds, the dead bird, the representation of his own trauma in that dead bird, and the recovering of his own unconscious mind is crucially important. To go further into your question, the choice that I made as a filmmaker was to keep the enigma going. And it was a difficult choice, particularly as when you get to him breaking into the caravan and stealing the girl, we don't know he's rescuing her. And I took credence from Polanski here. And if you'll notice, the camera is above the deck, and when he reaches to the girl, the camera actually sneaks over the edge to see it, in the same way that Polanski uses that trick in Rosemary's Baby. And on the big screen, that's terrifying. And it's very true what Polanski said, that when he was coming around the corner, you couldn't see who was speaking, that everyone did when she was on the phone, everyone does lean to the side. Well, I can tell you, I've been in plenty of cinemas that have showed this film, and people really do go, oh, I don't want to look. I don't, and the whole, and I just feel, my filmmaking is working. Because of course, in order to, in the matter of Hitchcock, in order to appreciate the morality of it, we have to allow the audience to indulge in its immorality, even if that is unconscious. Now, of course, feminist criticism would have a lot to say about the, men making women symbols, particularly when they're girls, and particularly when they're dressed in red, because of course that strain of red goes through it. And that's something that still makes me feel icky about the film. But I have to tell you, if we as filmmakers, and George, I'm sure you agree, if we don't feel slightly icky about it, if we're like totally happy with what we've done, then we're missing something. And I think that that's a very, in my novels or in my films, I always try to have something that I'm not totally comfortable with myself. and then the discomfort comes off. Otherwise, you end up with sanitized productions. And dare I say, that's what America does. I'm sorry to say, in commercial filmmaking, and I do come back to Adorno on this matter, it's like, well, this plot could be smoother. It could have been spelled out for the audience, but in order to keep us on the edge, I chose not to make it, to leave there so many questions and enigmas hanging in the air. So great question, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just love those little chicks, those little birdies. I will say this about the film, that final scene when she finds the girl in the chook shed. And by the way, do Americans use the term chooks?
No.
Or is that very Australian? So I'm
Australian.
Sure what the hell is he talking about? Chooks is a colloquial term that Australians use to describe chickens. When that whole scenario, what I'm trying to say here is that whole scenario was shot in 5 different locations, 300 kilometers apart. And that's all spliced together to make it look like one scene. And I was very, again, it's Hitchcock. You've got to have a really keen eye on where the eye lines are and how the shots are meshing together and how you create this imaginary cinematic space. So that's just me blowing my own trumpet here. But I was very pleased that it came together so well. I'm actually facing that in my next film. I'm about to shoot within 3 weeks. I'm about to shoot my next film. And I shot one earlier this year and I'm shooting one now. And I have a similar thing with only 4 locations, but this is not my terrain. This is Singapore. I'm a natural Australian. I feel very connected to the earth, and I know the earth and the undulations in Australia. And I'm sure you guys know, as a spirit of a filmmaker, there's something we do that is just guided and spiritual, and however disturbing the material we're looking at. So I feel very nervous to be capturing a country that is not mine. It's still very nature-centered. It's set in a temple in the middle of the Singapore forest. And if you've been to Singapore, you know there's not much forest left because they bulldozed it. But so that's going to be a challenge that I face also. It's a good time to be showing interference because I think I've got a stronger script in the film I'm about to shoot, but just reminding me of staying on the edge. I'm talking too much.
I'm sure like a lot of your experiences would inform, the next production. And really looking forward to the next one. I know how hard it is. We have a question from Hannah Harry in Singapore, and she's asking about the actors. Are there any ethical lines between capturing their emotional moments and possibly exploiting it, or is it just called acting?
Well, that's a blurred line in itself. I mean, if you're a really good actor, you kind of exploit yourself, I would say. I don't know about how everyone else who's an actor feels about that. But that's a really excellent question. And it's one that I have a very strong position on. And that is, I work very, very hard with actors' performances. And I would have no qualms in saying I work extremely ethical with them. There is nothing I do to an actor that I haven't already asked their permission beforehand. Like, say, for example, when the kettle boils and he's watching presumably the pedo porn on TV, you'll notice he jumps out of his skin. Well, the character had PTSD, so he couldn't just sort of casually go over and smash that kettle. So I said to him, mate, I'm not seeing the shock. Do you mind if I scream in your ear? And he said, no, please scream in my ear. Give me something. And so it's like I always give them permission. I don't play tricks on actors. It's different when you're working with child actors. You can't exploit children. And you'll note that a lot of the film, when something is disturbing is happening on that angle, the child is not actually there in the reverse angle. I'm shooting with an 11-year-old Chinese boy in the next film, and he has an Australian convict yell the F word in his face. He won't be there. I will work very clearly on shaping his performance, and I'm shooting over the shoulder of a body double. When it comes to preparation, that's why I do a lot of rehearsals, and I am utterly convinced that what I'm doing is not exploiting, and I would bring into that the way in which someone like Lee Strasberg is clearly exploiting actors, and as Colin Council said, turning them into inward-turned neurotics. Well, I'll have you, I would like to point out that those actors all became my friends. If they weren't friends beforehand, they became actors. And I'll just take this moment to share that the lead character in this film, who bowled me over when I met him, passed away. He passed away only 2 years after the film, and this was one of the last longer form works that he did. So sad. He was a real talent, and as you can see, when you're casting, you want to see what the character is straight away. And Andrea's, you can probably see, you look in those eyes and you see trauma. He had it in bucket loads. How he lived day to day, I don't know, but he was suffering as a human being. Now, coming back to your question, if that's exploitation, then well, it's not exploitation. He was shown great. I mean, if I felt as if I was exploiting, I'd be the first to point it out. I'm highly self-critical. So great question. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the way you give agency to actors, it's the same way many independent filmmakers do give agency to actors, and they have creative choices, and we're also told to draw on our past experiences, our present moments, to give life to the character. So I think it's a great question, and ultimately I think the actor has a lot to say. We have a question from Diana, and it's a question that I also had. What moved you to create this story? Why did you make this film? And it's just so wonderful to see, the actors who all participated in co-creating this story. But what was your motivation to tell this story? Why was it important to you?
Another great question. This is wonderful. I could do this all night. What moved me to create the story? Quite simply, I frequently go away on sabbatical as a writer and as an academic. I just like to get away by myself. Because I'm an academic, I don't like other people very much. I like to hang out by myself and write my papers. But seriously, there is something very damaged in me, and I don't mind admitting I have been sexually abused myself. So that was what rose, and how it rose was this: that shack, or do you say shack in America? That homestead in which the film is shot was actually where I was staying on the coast when I was dealing with some pretty heavy stuff at the time. My beautiful wife came down and visited me. She apologizes for not being here tonight, Samita, by the way. And I was dealing with some stuff, so I strongly identified with the character. And I find when you're by yourself, if you're working hard, it's not a problem. But when you stop and think, there's lots of self-reflection to do. Now, that was 5 years ago, so I've happily come through that period. But the other thing was just the sheer influence of the world around me. Like, the story just came together from an unconscious need to tell the story and the rich environment that it was in. If you go to that actual space, it doesn't look much like that, because the beach is like miles from where the shack is, and we construct that kind of reality as filmmakers. So yeah, that's what moved me to create it. And cogitating the question that I mentioned earlier, society says it will look after people who've been abused, but it doesn't. People abnegate their responsibility, and I think as ethical filmmakers, it's important that we rub their noses in it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you want to read my book, if you want to read my novel, whoa, you've read it, haven't you, Samita? Did you read my
it's
novel?
right here. I did. It's right here.
Now this is scary. Right.
Yes, it's right here. And it's very poetic and beautifully written. And it's a piece to read again and again. And yeah. And I could relate to what you're saying, and telling these stories are extremely important. And I'm really glad that you made the film and you wrote the book. And I'm sure, your forthcoming work will keep addressing the issue in many layered ways, because I feel like, certain questions, ethical questions we have, they're not necessarily answered right away. And they sort of flow into the next, project sometimes. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, wasn't it Bertolucci who said that every film he makes is exactly the same film he made before? It's just different people and different environments, but he's still saying exactly the same thing. I think Buñuel said a similar thing too. I love those Europeans.
Yeah, and also gives so much authenticity to the work, I always say that art reflects life, so design your life in a way that gets reflected in your art and the kind of, artwork you have done. And, many of us are doing the same. It's authentic, and you're sharing in a space that's transparent, and there is accountability. And I truly hope that many more, students and scholars, readers, thinkers, they're inspired by that.
Thank you. George, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I'm certainly inspired. Thank you so much, Samita, because I'm certainly inspired. I so much of these sorts of discussions as well, and hearing what Ken has to say, hearing what Andrea has to say, hearing what Samita has to say, and then hearing the filmmaker himself add so much more to the film watching experience and the experience of internalizing the questions. It just raises question upon question again. Of course, listen, I would love to talk all day about film production things.
Like I say, you and I are going to meet one time, and we are going
to. But at the same time, we could talk all day about the ethical questions. I mean, I loved Hannah's question, right, about the ethics of around working with actors. And I loved your response to that too, Ian, because you were very, very confident. But listen, I think all of us are intelligent enough to know that many people can disagree with us about what is or isn't ethical about things. And while I do agree,
that's important in itself, because if you are so convinced you're being ethical, and you can't, as Pericles said, and you can't withstand criticism, then you're not being ethical. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, George.
No, that was exactly the point I was going to make, is just the fact that you're able to ask yourself these questions. Wait, how can I be ethical in this position? And perhaps somebody will challenge you, and perhaps you might acknowledge or not that a mistake was made, and I made a mistake, or or somebody made a mistake along the ways, or even especially around the question of exploitation. Because we were talking about exploitation of actors due to Hannah's question, but also the question of exploitation is, of course, permeates your work here, is that can't we change our minds about exploitation at a later time? Oh, wait a second. I was exploited despite the fact that this happened. I regret it now. But I think the best we can do really with such questions is just the fact that Ian is cognizant of these questions and doing his best to address these questions. Can we do any better? Unfortunately, I don't have a phone line to God to answer all of these questions for me. And so,
I do. You can borrow mine.
Well, God bless you. Text me his number, please. Email me his number, because I love it. But yeah, just the fact that we are asking these questions, I think, is the best we can do. And doesn't that speak to the ethics and the morality of your filmmaking, Ian, so brilliantly, right? And so that does inspire us so much. I do want to echo another question that I saw underneath here. Samita and Ian, can you please inform us of the title of your novel that Sumita so glowingly spoke of.
Yes, I'm Ian's publicist right now. It's called Loving the Amazon. And I believe it's available on Amazon, but on many other platforms too.
Yes, on all sorts of platforms. Yeah. And I could just point out, a good friend of mine who was a visual artist. In fact, she did this picture behind me here. She designed the cover there, and the publisher allowed her design to go through because it was better than what they had come up with. But if you just hold it up there again, Samita, just hold the front cover up, right? And back it off a little. I sound like a filmmaker, don't I? Yes. Now, you see here, the semiotic question is who is in power, and it's clearly the woman. But in reality, that Pre-Raphaelite painting was painted 90 degrees. Can you tip it 90 degrees?
90 degrees, like that?
The other way. There, right. Now you see how the politics are changed? Voila. That's feminism.
Is that feminism or?
No, that's just a male's guilt. And the fact that I just really love dominating women. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I love women who dominate me.
It does sound like patriarchal personal branding, so I think that's apropos.
Well, I just came from a conference in Perth where the feminist critique was huge, and it's what us men have to do. We have to keep asking questions, and of course, a huge issue that came up during that conference was Wade versus Roe.
Oh, we all have feelings, yeah.
I'm really interested to see how the questions around ethics overlap with the two films we have today. We have some more comments coming in. Diana, she was a fantastic delegate from the Center for Media and Celebrity Studies. She says ethics is a good point. Mental trauma can occur.
I love the comment that's on the screen at the moment, Diana. Thank you.
Yeah, she does use poetry. She uses arts for healing, and she also added another comment here, which I hope you can see. Ethics is a good point. Mental trauma can occur from being pushed too far. So I think going on, your own pace and just creating and informing and creating that safe space, it's so important.
Yes, and I think that also comes back to the earlier question that was it Haley made? If you push someone too far, they will crack. And I find that exploitative filmmakers who want to simply manipulate actors into a performance, they are being immoral. They are being deeply, deeply unethical. And they're also covering their ignorance because they just don't know what an actor does. You want to get good performances, respect your actors. That's my philosophy.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I've inspired your next poem. That's cool, Diana. Sorry, Sumita.
Yeah, no, I mean the whole film industry, film stardom in particular, the kind of stardom that we see in tabloid press, it is based on mass production. And that's why young actors are so preferable because, they are pushed to perform, even if it doesn't really voice their own stories or concerns, like just to match up to a certain social narrative. So they are pushed, but there are many new filmmaking and acting schools popping up that are actually telling us the opposite, just to go on your own pace and to write your stories and tell your stories and, create that, shared space where it could be, screened or exhibited, because that's very important. So very thankful for, all the platforms that are supporting us, like filmfreeway.com, stage32.com, all our wonderful audiences too. I mean, it is just, fantastic, and so much is possible with the internet technology as well, coming from all parts of the world.
Definitely. So many things I could say.
Yeah,
We-
what
I
should I have though?
I have so much to say myself. I'm just trying to, just pace myself and just, enjoy the moment because
this is what I wanted to say, if you don't mind, very very briefly. We know that sometimes even great filmmakers like Stanley Kubrick can ruin the lives of someone like Shelley Duvall. It's a classic case, and it's not an isolated case. Again, that's ignorance playing out. Yes, I did say Kubrick is ignorant. You can put me down the record for that, but most importantly, we have to understand when you're a performer, and Ken, you might feel this too, we actually resign ourselves to someone else's vision. So we're actually selling a part of our souls, in a sense. We are allowing ourselves to be the tabula rasa upon which the audience projects our stuff. I get cast as the bad guy, as you've seen. I get cast as the bad guy all the time. And honestly, not much of that touches me. I do go very deep when I'm acting, but not much of it touches me. I've never seen something I've acted in and went, wow, that was a stunning piece of television or a stunning piece of film. I don't feel that. And part of it is coming back to the Adorno situation. It's just all pre-packaged. And sorry, enough said.
Yeah, there's so much to say. I would be very interested to hear how our ethical concerns overlap with the two films that we have today. We have another 7-minute short, and it's a romantic comedy, also speaking on ethics, but I'm not going to give away too much. So I would ask us to hold on to our questions till the end and maybe have a little fun break over this little romantic comedy. And if anybody wants to, take a short break, bring some tea, coffee, please feel free. But I'll play the next film, and very excited and nervous because it's one of my first films.
Hey.
So bear with me.
Sure.
We can't be heard during the films, can we?
Pardon me?
We can't be heard during the films. We don't have to keep quiet or anything.
No, it's okay. You can have your mic on. It's fine.
Oh.
Come on. Shit.
Lauren, hi. I'm in a hurry right now. I can't talk for too long. Yeah, the date went well last night. He's gonna be here any minute for our second date. Of course I'm sure. Do you think a plumber would like to date a lawyer? I need to keep pretending. Shit. He's here. I'm gonna call you later. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Mona.
Come in.
Got this.
What's that?
Well, it's wine. I thought it would go well with the pasta.
Yeah, I didn't have time. I'm sorry.
How about we order pizza?
I think this will be nice while we wait for the pizza. Sorry, this tap has been leaking for a long time. Do you mind fixing it for me?
I didn't bring my tools. Maybe later.
Well, hold on. It's the tap, not the drain.
Well, I fix pipes, but not of this type. Well, you're a biology student, so you might be pleased to know that I'm actually a heart surgeon.
I have to be honest.
Yeah, you're right. I should leave.
No. That's not what I wanted to say. I haven't been honest either. I'm a lawyer.
Well, I'm glad this came out now. I said I'm a plumber because most women, when they come to know that I'm a surgeon, they think of my money first.
It's funny. Every time I tell a guy that I'm a lawyer, they think I'm threatening. I want people to see who I am, not my profession. My only disappointment is we won't be able to fix that damn tap.
Yeah. Man, you look incredible on camera.
Me? No,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I thought about, how I looked at first and then how I look later. I mean, I guess it worked for the film, the story. I'm very tired at first, and then at the end, like, wow. I don't know. It's very hard to sort of look at my own work. Yeah. It's one of my first ones, and very happy to be able to share it today. And let's see. Yeah, any first impressions or thoughts so far?
I love that.
Yeah, there you go, Ken. Please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I love that quote. Life is simple, but we insist on making it complicated. And I think that was a perfect quote to end on. We tell all these lies throughout our lives sometimes, and sometimes if we just tell the truth and we're honest, it actually makes things better. And if we're upfront, it's actually less scary than if we lie. Because if you lie, you always have to keep up the lie, and that makes life complicated. It's a beautiful message.
Yeah, thank you. That was one of our main reasons for writing the script. Of course, it did come from a leaking tap at first. The leaking tap was an inspiration, but there were a lot of pressing stories to tell, very hard to tell all in 7 minutes, and we wanted to make it like a little comedy, and with a little suspense, because a lot of times, like when we actually think about the real life stories, they're so dramatic, and I'm very good at playing this, psycho X, whatever person, like pretty good at it. But I do want to learn how humor can be used as a narrative strategy as well. And sometimes just being light and a little funny can actually still pass the message on. But yes, I think truth is very important for me, and just being transparent. That's very, very important for me. So yeah, that was one of the main reasons to do this film.
Well, you pulled it off beautifully, just beautifully. I have to say, uh, all of us filmmakers put so much into our casting. Well, you know, Lewis is just lucky that he married a supermodel, you know, because he's got you right there. I'm so impressed because there is a quality of your performance that gives away a discomfort which belies your education and your intelligence. You know, it's like there's something really, really deeply sweet about you as a person, and that comes across so eloquently. And I would have to say that as a reading of the film, because I know you both, and I know that Lewis is possibly the sweetest person in the universe, that, well, look, I'm just going to go into it now and just stop me if I'm talking too much. But I find it really interesting because I know Lewis is the filmmaker, right? So I start watching this thing, and there are all these voyeuristic shots of you and your ass and the door, and that puts us in a kind of classic position of the male voyeur. It's the male gaze that we're eliciting here. But when you know it's Lewis that's behind the camera, and then he steps into the diegetic reality, it's something really special. You know, my heart opens just seeing the two of you being in love on screen, and that's that kind of authenticity you just can't fake.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We try to be very professional.
Don't be too professional, because yeah, you gotta hold that edge.
Yeah, thank you for that thought. Yeah, I try to perform with authenticity and, you know, just to perform the way I would speak. But I have to say it's not an easy thing to do. Like when you are, you know, giving life to a character that's not necessarily you and should exceed some of your own limits. And um, looking at my own work as an academic was very, very hard because I was very critical of myself. Like, okay, I was always very strategically positioned, and I would write in a very strategic way. And my most careful shots would be during a model shoot, you know, and that's not necessarily because, you know, it's, you know, polished or cropped or anything. It's just like it's, you know, more agency there. But when I started to act in front of a camera, and that started with my training at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, I just realized, whoa, I mean, you have to be very vulnerable and completely, you know, like just open every angle of yourself. And I'm very blessed to be in spaces where, you know, I can just accept myself for who I am, and I accept others too. That is the core of my nature, I guess. That's a bit about the performance, not necessarily about the story. Any other thoughts? Andrea, you're the feminist scholar.
I do have a question. It's a because I really love the film. Congratulations on a wonderful piece of work. I know everybody feels that way. I do have a question about the narrative structure of the film, which struck me immediately, which is that two characters read, especially the perspective of the female character, Mona. You sort of watch her internal sort of monologue with herself through the closet, then with her friend, and then when she's with her, you know, her date shows up, reading nuances, and then distractions of the apartment, her own space, and then the distraction of another person that she's trying to focus on all at once. My question is, how did you manifest distraction as a narrative strategy? Because it really works very well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I think it was really in the screenplay. We wrote the script together, and I think we're really good at that. You know, I mean, not like quality of screenplay, I'm saying, like just like working together. I think it's worked out very well. So you just have to sort of, you know, I don't know, this is what we did. We put ourselves in the shoes of a director, of an actor, of a cameraman, and of course, Louis, he did all the directing and the editing and the lights setup. It was all on a mobile phone, by the way. And we kept all of that in mind, like what the light would be, what kind of sound effects we would have at certain points. And what happens when somebody's really, really distracted, when they come back from work and a million things are going on, your phone is buzzing, the doorbell will ring. It's like very scattered, so certain things that you plan that, okay, you wanted to cook this, but it's actually not there. You don't have enough supply, whatever. So yeah, I'm glad you noticed that that kind of distraction and how, in a very unspoken way, it told the story. And the goal of the storytelling was to, not necessarily speak words, but also use some of these non-verbal cues, I guess.
And speaking of non-verbal cues, your eyes convey so much. I mean, it really was the key to the comedy for most. Here's the man. Hello, man.
Hi.
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
I was just
I was
saying.
sitting in backstage. Sorry for being so long.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah, no, I just I'm thinking about, again, Hitchcock used Grace Kelly's eyes that way when she throws the look, like everything's going in one particular direction, and then there's this animal eye that screams. In this case, the comedy, it screams to propel the narrative. And it happens so much. I commend you, Lewis, for capturing that quality in Samita. I mean, I know Samita as an academic, and I've never seen her lose her cool, not not ever. So to capture that authenticity in this was really remarkable.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, like, if a lot of I know the screenplay and then positioning the camera, the lights, some of them were quite conscious, but a lot was dependent on how we act on screen as well. So I don't know, just organically, I think the film turned out the way we are also in person.
Which is extraordinarily hard to capture. I mean, that's no small feat for a filmmaker to not only capture his partner on screen and be natural, but also to capture himself on screen and be natural. It was really beautiful. And I have to say, the one thing you can't fake in this is love. You guys are so in love. That is palpable. How could you and how could you otherwise trust each other to be so naked in each other's space there? That's commendable. Absolutely commendable.
Yeah, I think this was part of the whole thing. It was our first actual movie, I guess, and together on top of it. And I don't know if Samita mentioned it was all done on our mobile phone and during a lockdown. so yeah, to actually I don't know, find this space within us. I have to admit, it was my first time doing this kind of work and being in front of the camera and behind the camera at the same time, and find this mental space during the pandemic to express something. It was a challenge. I mean, we had to work quite a lot on getting those scenes done, and yeah, I'm quite happy of the result. But for the first film, I would say it's not so bad. But yeah, we had fun doing it. We definitely had fun.
And may I ask, because I've done that, and George has done this also, we swap sides of the camera just to keep ourselves on our toes. Do you find there is a difficulty establishing one mental space and then switching to another and then switching back again? I have my own personal experience of that, but I'm more interested in yours, Lewis.
Yeah, it's actually very difficult because one I mean, the lighting, the sound, the camera, it's technical, right? So it's a very different mental space. So I would spend a lot of time to set up so that I have as little technicalities on my mind. So we would practice, we would rehearse everything and make sure that it's okay. And then we would do, I think we had a rule, I think I said maximum 3 shots, 3 takes, sorry, because I got so exhausted at that point to set everything up. But in general, yeah, it would be very difficult to do both at the same time. I think I had to create that split where I would set everything up and then do the acting, because I'm not sure I would be able to do both
No,
together. Two different mental space, completely different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was quite nice. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
One thing.
No, George, go for it.
Sorry, one thing I don't know if this was mentioned before, but it was one of Samita and I talk about it. Sometimes we say, "Oh, that's what you think." We came from the direction I can making film. She had some internet my own, and I put out there because I think in the description we say a romantic comedy with a twist or something like that. And I know for me, I'm not necessarily a big fan of romantic comedies, to be totally honest. So I wanted to do something different. So in the structure of the romantic comedy, there's a part that really always bothers me when I see one on Netflix or anywhere. It's that it's this standard, predictable 3-act structure where the 2 people meet, then they have the fight and they lose one another, and then the last act is like there's the run to the airport, to the bus station, to the train station. It's pretty much always the same thing. And in my mind, the one thing I really wanted to do, and that was the fun part for me, is okay, let's skip that middle part where they lose one another. And then we see Samita walking in the park and Louis drinking beer and getting drunk. And they just essentially, there's a crisis because they both find out that they have been lying, but they resolve it right there on the spot. And that was the fun part in the writing. I really wanted to do something differently from that perspective. Look, cut that whole middle part of the two persons, the 2 lovers losing one another.
Lewis, I have to say that it is a hugely formulaic genre. There's no doubt about that. But when people get it right, it's a delightful thing to see. And I think it's ethical in itself that we concentrate on themes that are just like, they're beautiful. Who doesn't love love? There's something wrong with you if you don't like a good romantic comedy. That makes you, Lewis. Something wrong with you, man. But I have to say, the only thing that makes a love story, whether that's a romantic comedy or a social love story or a tragic love story, the only thing that makes it work is genuine love. And that is not something that happens even between people who love each other as you guys do. That's not something that happens all the time, and it doesn't necessarily manifest on screen, and you've achieved both. I think that's massive. And as Andrea said, like, it's a beautifully shot, beautifully edited film. I'm really jealous because I had a crew of 30 and a 6K camera, like, you did this on your mobile phone. And like, what did you do during lockdown? It's like, I give up. So, I just want to pay credence to what a really fine piece of work that is.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, I think whether a film.
I think that's another big motivation for me. I'm, despite my technical background. Oops. Sorry, it's delayed there.
Yeah, there's a delay.
Yeah, so
No, go
I just
ahead.
finished my thought here. Yeah, I think to make that film for me one of the other big condition I put the same place. We need to keep it simple. I don't want to have to deal with complicated cameras and equipment, and we actually trained ourselves for several months before mobile filmmaking, so that we don't need the complex, expensive route. Sent me a very good filmmaking camera that she sold a few years ago, and at one point we were a bit regretting that. But after a while, I realized, and I had an SLR camera that we also get rid of just before making that film. And then we thought, no, I think actually it's going to be more fun to keep everything simple. And I'm very glad we did, because I mean, it was locked down, so we would have been really screwed, excuse the expression, if we had to gather a team and get any hard equipment. And the apartment was very small. It was hard enough to put that tripod with the cell phone, the mobile phone on it. I mean, it was very difficult to find the right spot. I mean, there was only one place I think I could put it. So a big camera, we would just have bumped it off. It would have been very bad. So in a way, I think that, again, it was a motivation to do it this way. And I know that you can get probably much better quality everything with the right and better quality equipment and the right crew. But yeah, in our case, we made that decision from the start to keep it simple, and I'm glad that you guys liked it. I'm sure it's not perfect, but yeah, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate.
Deserved.
Yeah, there's so much. There's so much that can be said. I mean, yeah, we can talk about the feminist aspects of it. We can talk about the ethical aspects. But since we're talking about the technical and the production aspects of it, I mean, that is one thing that I really find, and we can tie this in with an ethical kind of concern too, which is just the democratization of the arts, especially the expensive arts like filmmaking now. Now, of course, you could do have a 30-person crew like Ian had the good fortune of managing. But there is a difference, I think, in really paring down. And there is something to be expressed when you really pare down and you work within the constraints that we have, and saying these are the constraints that I will work within. I mean, Andrea as an artist, Ken as an actor, we all have constraints that we must work within. Otherwise, yeah, infinite possibilities yields zero possibilities. In fact, we do have to say, this is what I will do. This is not what I will do. I'm working like this. I'm thinking about music, actually, right? Beethoven wrote symphonies with 100-person orchestras. He also wrote string quartets for 4 musicians, but there's also solo pieces where it's 1 musician. And there are different things that can be said with all of those. So I think there's plenty of room for filmmakers who have 100 or 1,000-person crews, or all the way down to filmmakers who have 1 or 2-person crews, like it looks like you did. And to say that I'm only working with this camera, right? I think that's brilliant, in the same way that Beethoven might say, I'm only working on a piano right now. This is going to be a piano piece. This will be a solo violin piece. This will be that piece. And yeah, when we have the resources, we'd love to compose for an orchestra as well. But those say something radically different, I think. I think it says something radically different, the orchestra pieces, I mean, than the solo pieces. In the same way, I think Samita was speaking so much about the Hollywood, and Ian was speaking about the Hollywood machine, and how the Hollywood machine says, for better or for worse, a very limited scope of expression, because they work with so much things, and because they have other constraints in mind. I certainly don't want to say that Hollywood doesn't produce good movies every now and again, but they've got very significant constraints, such that if they're making $100 million movie, they need to think, what will make me back $200 million just so that I can break even. And that is a serious constraint that they work within, even with 1,000-person crews. But we've got other constraints that we as independent filmmakers have when we work with 1 or 2-person crews, or when we work with our cell phones, right? But I think there is something so fascinating to be said with just a cell phone and 2 people, right? That 1,000-person orchestra can't say. There's the nuance that can't be said, the nuance that Ian was speaking to, that you can see the love on the screen, right? That you can, that you were working within such a confined space, that an orchestra, a loud Hollywood movie, it blares at your ears. Sometimes you have to cover your ears when you're watching these Hollywood movies. Yet Louis and Samita make a movie that we can work within and say such subtle, with such subtle quietude, the beauty of love. And just like Louis said, I love how Louis says this. I hate romantic comedies. By the way, I don't want to say too much about myself, but that's almost why I make music. That's why I make films, is because I don't like what films I do see. I say, wait a second, I need to say something different. And I applaud you both, Samita and Louis, for saying, I don't like I don't want to name any actresses or directors, but I dislike the latest Hollywood romantic comedy. I want to make the Massey and Nandy romantic comedy, which I think is amazingly ethical, and I find amazingly moral and amazingly courageous in the 21st century, that we have the resources to do this. And sometimes you don't even need a what's it called, a tripod. You could just kind of set it on the, if you stack books high enough and balance the phone just right, I think it'll hold sometimes. So yeah, I'm so in so much admiration for your courage in making that.
Thank you, George. And I remember you said in one of our past talks that, how ridiculously fortunate you feel, to be in this age, with mobile technology, and to be able to make an independent film, whether it's a short film or, a feature film. Right now we're looking at short films because it is sustainable, and that's something that we want others to consider as well. Like if they have a story to tell, then there are means to do that, and it doesn't have to be like even a full film. It could be like any audiovisual story. So that's why we also wanted to open up the Wall of Film Fame festival, so that we could tell ethical stories, personal stories. It's not necessarily about the technology all the time. I think it's very important to, specify like, okay, what technology, we have used and performed with, but the story is more important.
Right. And on that, sorry.
No, I was just going to say one last thing, that I also like the fact that, that the conflict was resolved right away. There was a conflicting situation, but nobody really gets into a conflict. And this is something that I would like to see more and more from the wider community, just to be very open with, certain limits. And most people, they want to be a perfectionist. They, in society, they want to play certain social roles. They want to live up to, I don't know, so certain social expectations. So they tell lies, or they don't live their truth in order to, be a perfectionist. And in this case, the two characters, they already have perfect roles. One is a lawyer, the other is a doctor, but they receive a lot of, I don't know, misunderstanding, or actually no understanding of who they are in real life. So they wanted to play roles till they win the trust of each other. And I guess they did, and they opened up. So it's not something that, we necessarily do in real life, but this was a narrative device, I guess.
Yeah, well, I have to champion the guy who said impressed the lady by telling her he's a plumber. It takes something to get away with. But if I can just add to what you are saying, Samita, and also to what George just said just now, if you have a large crew, and if you're looking at Hollywood and you're talking about thousands of people that go into those films, you'd better be pretty damn confident. But by the same token, when you make a film with a camera and two people, and you are the director, Lewis, and you are the actor, then we're going to see the cracks if you can't make films. You know, you are a filmmaker, and it's poetic. And you know, Diana made comments about poetry earlier, and I think it's just superb. It's a beautiful work of art. I have two questions, if I may. First of all, was this shot in Portugal?
Yes.
Right. I could tell by the design on the wall. Yeah, no, great place, Portugal. But my next question, and I'm hoping that we get a comment from Andrea here. I'm reminded when I see a film made by a man about the woman he loves, about an essay I once read, don't take this the wrong way, but an essay I once read on pornography by a feminist by the name of Finn. I think her name was Geraldine Finn. And she said what filmmakers do is they place, when the male filmmaker will place his woman on display so that other men can admire his woman, and therefore it promotes patriarchy in his stead. Now, I knew this would be an unpopular thing to say, but I'd love to hear anyone who would like to comment on that in the sense that, say, you know, Woody Allen's putting Mia Farrow or Diane Keaton up on the screen, and there are plenty of examples when that happens. I'm actually in the position where I've auditioned a whole heap of actresses to play a part in my next film, and the best actress is my wife. And I'm really terrified. Of how that will go. But if anyone wants to comment on that, I'd be keen to hear.
As a man, I want to speak up first.
It's a feminist question. It has to be answered by a man.
Exactly. What I love, and I would have loved, I saw that Andrea popped out for a second, but what I love about feminism so much, and so many of the feminist insights that I've picked up from feminism is certainly regarding the treatment of women, but also how much we, Ian, Ken, and Louie and I can internalize so many questions that women address themselves all the time. And this is what I loved about the feminism in this film, actually, especially espoused by Samita, such that it's okay to be vulnerable. I loved Diana's comment earlier when she was speaking to the vulnerability in this film. But the vulnerability, especially, that I'm trying to speak very carefully now, so forgive me for stuttering. But the vulnerability that women are so accustomed to internalizing and expressing and living with, and that men like myself, at least, I don't want to speak too much for Ian, Louie, or Ken, but that men like myself are very reticent to express, right? Such that Samita's character speaks to her career achievement as being a lawyer, and then says, "Oh my goodness, I can't fix a leaky faucet." How silly is this? And this speaks exactly to your comment earlier, Ian, about, if you want to, the way to a woman's heart is by being a plumber or something like this, right? This notion, though, that women do have to struggle with that. Wait a second, I am a woman here, but I need to succeed. But there are so many other things that I have to put on hold, so to speak. I can't be the plumber in my own home, for example, because I'm a lawyer. that I love that sentiment. I love that feminist concern, because it has given me as a male permission to say, oh my goodness. Now, I don't want to speak for you, Ken, or anybody else in the room, or Ian, or Samita even, but as an academic, I've come to terms with how basically useless I am in society. Right. and how I can't fix my own plumbing. I still called somebody. I was so embarrassed. Speaking of plumbing, I was so embarrassed when my toilet overflowed one day, and I called somebody, and literally all they did is pull out the plunger and go, look, I just push it down. And I'm like, how foolish am I that I couldn't deal with the simplest of problems by just plunging. I don't know how they call it in Australia or in Portugal, but the plunger is this big stick with a suction cup or something like that. I don't even know how to describe it. This is how ignorant I am of basic necessities, basic life survival skills. And I'm so grateful that I live in a place where a fool like me can survive and can thrive, because if I lived mere 50 years ago, I think I'd be dead. I would have starved to death, right? So I really love that feminist insight that they've expressed, that really internalizes to me that, oh, look at me, I'm such an achieved, I'm actually not quite accomplishing anything, yet I'm able to survive. And this feminist insight that tells me, George, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to recognize your foibles. It's okay to say, I'm not a good plumber. I'm not a good anything. I'm not a good cook. I'm not a good, like I said, I can barely survive. And I don't know that Finn, the writer you referenced, Ian, is what was addressing those concerns. But one of the feminist concerns, and this is, by the way, why I love feminist thinking so much, is because I don't think feminism is merely for the females. And I you'll forgive me, but I think I am allowed to speak up and say, yes, that is something that I am learning from feminism. And furthermore, how fruitful feminist thought is, such that even and you see this in the, I think Samita can speak a little bit to this, in popular celebrity feminists are actually today find themselves at loggerheads with each other about what does feminism entail regarding complicated social issues today. I love the fruitfulness that feminism has arrived at, that we can have such controversies, even within feminist thought, such that, oh, George, oh, Ian, oh, Louis, you're not real feminists. It's like, well, I beg to differ, but I beg to differ because feminism is so brilliant and so wonderful, because it does allow this fruitfulness and diversity of thought and diversity of feminist positions, such that I'm going to have to read the Finn article, Ian. Thank you for pointing that out to me. But I think we are allowed to disagree with some of these insights. But to even your earlier, my earlier comment to you, Ian, about being ethical, to I think it was Diana, or maybe it was it Helen, or another comment below, who said, wait, Ian, are you being ethical? The fact that we are asking the question, I don't think is enough. Don't mistake me. I don't think it's enough to merely question, but the fact that we are questioning these insights ourselves and dealing with these questions and wrestling with these questions, I think is a wonderful problem. So the fact that you're wrestling, Ian, with working with your wife, I think you're already ahead of the game, so to speak. I don't think that guarantees that you'll be ethical with your wife, but I do think that it guarantees that you're ahead of the game.
Thank you. But I think that Diana really has hit the nail on the head here with a comment on the screen. Samita, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, sure. She says, woman on display to increase male ego. Not a fan. And that's not the right position to take, I guess. It is beautiful to appreciate your woman, but to exploit her is not a good thing. It takes away from the beauty of intimacy.
Great.
Yeah.
Agreed. Although the
Yeah.
male ego doesn't actually need increasing because it's already a chock-a-block full. But I would have to say that coming back to Lewis's film, it is absolutely the beauty of intimacy I'm seeing. I'm not seeing someone who is increasing their ego, and that's to the credit of the film and the credit of the two people who are working together on screen. I hope that you agree with that, Diana.
Yeah, I would say in relation to this film, and this film can be a challenge to those who are very much invested into celebrity feminism, because that's not completely feminist. There is there's a lot of privilege there. There's a lot of classism there. So feminism is quite challenged itself. I think some of the earlier writings in feminism, they helped to do close readings and read in between the lines and dismantle a lot of the class structures. But unfortunately, in pop culture and just in mainstream mass culture, a film like this may not be completely understood in favor of the Hollywood blockbuster or any Bollywood blockbuster. Um, so so I would say that there was a lot of agency here, a lot of creative choices here, and it was very authentic. The way I dress, that's who I am. It
That's
is
what I thought.
not just in the film; it's also beyond the film, or how I don't know. Just speak, or what kind of space I am in. And if you notice, there are not a lot of women around me all the time. I feel a lot of sexism I have faced is actually from women. Women can perpetuate a lot of patriarchal structures, and so the the film that has turned out, it has turned out the way it is in these social conditions. And I think at the end of the day, what feminism is really trying to do is just to be human. Um, any sort of like a position like anti-racism or anti-classism, essentially what they want is just to be human. And to be human is to be, you know I think vulnerable or vulnerability is sometimes like a very overloaded term. It's used too much without much understanding, like it's not well practiced. I would just say, just be honest with who you are, where you come from. Very simple things. What do you do? What languages you speak? And it's a very layered human. So I do hope that the characters we have here, they have more of a three-dimensional character where it's not just about their profession. It's about like who they are, what they're being challenged with, and tell the truth. I'm very tired of lies. I have lies from academics, I have lies from relatives. They do that in private chats. They don't do it in a space like here. so yeah, just be who you are. And I'm very, very proud of the kind of space that we have. It's a very niche space, and very grateful for just the fact to do this film and many more.
That shows
So one
great.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, Ken, were you saying something?
Oh, I was just gonna say the one thing I'll say in response to the question that was posed earlier about showcasing, like men showcasing their significant others. One of the things is, as storytellers, we do tell things from our own perspectives. So that is something to keep in mind. But there's an increase of women making movies and telling stories. And one of the things that I'm interested in seeing is how they show the male characters. And I've noticed that sometimes I'll be watching a film and I'll see a male character and he's ideal. He's like the perfect man. And then I'm thinking that's interesting because so often men do that as well with women. Like they're showing women to being like their ideal. So I'm hoping that there's going to be. I'm not the person to talk about this, but I'm just observing. Hopefully, there's a discussion about that and how we view ourselves, or how we view each other, and how we view like our ideal of like the perfect woman or the perfect man, and why do we view that way? And if you're a storyteller and you're showing a woman or a man in a certain light, and that's like your ideal, why is that? And also in something, George, you were saying earlier about how you're so inadequate in so many ways. I think we all are. The comedian Pete Holmes has no relation, has a great bit about about how he's an idiot. And then he lists all the ways in which he's an idiot. And he says, but you know what, we're all idiots because we're all inadequate in certain aspects of our lives, but we're also brilliant in other ways. And I think, too often we try to be perfect in every aspect of our life. And that's just simply impossible, I think. I don't know anybody who is.
Yeah, thank you. I take that as a comment, and also a direction, a step to take forward, I guess. So yes, it's that perfectionism, I guess, that most people try to achieve, and I think there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in learning. If you want to, adopt a certain style, you want to, like, let's see, even in filmmaking, to have a bigger crew, have a bigger cast. It's something that I'm working on. Not that big, but it is bigger. I am working with the production team, and it is very challenging, but one step at a time. And why am I even considering that? So there are reasons why. If it helps the story, then fine. If it doesn't, then no. There are many ways to tell the story. I hope I answered all the questions. Any final thought before we wrap up today? Yes, Ian.
Yeah, look, I think the answer to it is that you and Lewis have to make another film in which Lewis comes home and changes his clothes, and we watch Lewis, and then you come on and pretend to be a plumber. Reversing the roles. It would, it's. I would love to do something like that.
Yeah.
But I think it is really important that the way that we can really consider whether we have exploited, and that's been something that's come up a lot, and whether we are doing disreputable things like Finn suggests, is to flip male characters to female characters, to flip class, to flip race, to flip gender. And see what that produces as a discourse. And whether Lewis likes or hates romantic comedies or not, there's still a discourse, and it's worth engaging in, I think, particularly as you guys have got this perfect little scenario where you make films together. And I just want to congratulate you both on a beautiful piece of work. And there was a comment by Hannah just now saying, it's not on the screen anymore, but there it is. No,
I know. Here it is.
There, yes. And Hannah, I think it would be fair to say that we know, as has come up in this discussion before, that you don't make any drama without conflict, and that conflict has to be on the screen all the time. But as Samita pointed out, conflict should not necessarily be people yelling at each other. A simple dripping creates a beautiful distraction that is conflict. to the aim of love. But when it comes to beauty, well, I think, you know, you can experiment with golden proportions and Fibonacci sequences all you like, and understand the law of thirds and design your frames beautifully, as Lewis has done, and I hope I have done also. But that beauty is natural to us. It's natural, and when you see it in such droves like Samita and Lewis have created, that's just a wonderful thing to observe. I think if someone doesn't have an appreciation of beauty, they shouldn't be making films.
Thank you. Thank you. Any final thoughts, Ken, George, Louis?
Yeah, I think the best compliment would be Ian's compliment that we want to see more. Right? We always want from our film audience. Speaking especially to Hannah's rather concern about audience, I think that's exactly the point of all this, and that's why I love Samita, that you and your team have engendered this beautiful space that Diana was speaking to before, a space where we can be honest, because isn't that an essential part of what we're doing? We make the film, Ian's film and Samita and Louis' film. You all have made the films that you're exposing yourself, you're exposing your inner being, you're exposing your vulnerabilities, you're showing quite a bit of courage to expose yourselves to an audience. And the audience does, to Hannah's concern, I do think that the audience's voice is just as relevant as any others. But to Ian's point, then let's make more films. Let's continue the conversation. And the fact that your films today have sparked and engendered such a beautiful conversation and such a diverse conversation with conflict and with so many insights really speaks to the brilliance of everybody here as filmmakers, the three of you today as filmmakers, because the audience is so engaged with these films. So beautiful job to everybody. Louis, Samita, and Ian, thank you so much for sharing that with me and with the world.
Thank you. Thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you. Thank you.
Ken, Andrea, any final thought on the two films that we watched today?
Yes, I think after seeing our discussion here about romantic comedies, for some reason I'm inspired to go watch 1930s screwball comedies from the golden
Yeah, we do that sometimes.
Where everything is, I mean, just the quips are, they have no parallel. And because of Ian's, I was thinking from your film, The Red Cloak made me immediately think of Angela Carter's The Bloody Chamber.
Oh, yes!
And I think I want to go read some feminist fairy tales, especially from, in her book, The Saturday Woman, she talks about not wanting to be an allegory, not wanting to be a dreamscape, and not wanting to be a fantastical construct when she's a person who thinks. And it's really got me, you both have me thinking a lot about how we view culture as an audience. And when we're in the real, as we are now, I know this is a simulacrum, I know, but
is this real?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful to see everyone's work, and congratulations. Thanks so much.
You know, I met Angela Carter, and I was a huge fan of Angela Carter. This was when I was 19. And
Wow.
I thought I would be clever and announce how clever I was in her forum when she was speaking. She cut me down. I'll never forget it. And I needed a safe place,
That's great.
But I do love her work. I still love her works. And the follow-up to Bloody Chamber in Black Venus was also a brilliant piece of work.
Wonderful stuff. Okay.
Ken, any final thought?
Is he gone mute? You gone
Yes,
mute,
I
mate?
am mute. Wow. Thank you. I don't know how that happened. One of my favorite. Oh man, I've been saying so much. You've missed all of it.
It was gold.
It was gold. Oh wow. One of my favorite moments of your film was when you said, Samita, that honesty is important, and you were talking about yourself, but he took it personally because he was also not honest and he thought you were criticizing him. I just wanted to mention that. That was a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling very inspired by both of your films as well as the discussion, and I'm gonna go right.
Good for
Yeah.
you. Good for you. And then when you're on set with Bradley Cooper, you tell him, "I've written a script. It's going to be perfect for you." And then
That's right.
I've done that with stars myself, and they're like, "Oh, really?" And I never hear from them again.
Something that I am going to do, and I'm in the process of doing, is flipping characters. So if I have a real life story from a female, I would actually swap it and turn it into a male character in the story. It just broadens the horizons more. So, and it allows us to have more empathy, I guess, towards some of these, real life characters that we might be very attached to. It's very personal, but as a storyteller, I'm trying to be more and more empathetic, and see the other point of view and how this is actually not like an isolated case. It applies to everybody. So that's something that I will be doing in the next couple of weeks, and I can't believe that we're over 2 hours here. But I feel that the space is so important in which we screen, and it's like continuation of the film, and the dialogue continues with more and more productions, and very, very thankful. So I hope the audience also loved. We had fantastic comments today from a number of people, Diana and Hannah, and so many more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well done, Lewis. Well done, Samita.
Well done, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'll sign off, but we're going to be in touch, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks. Congratulations, guys.
Great to
Bye,
see you all
everyone.
again.
Stay
Good
well.
to see you too.